For me, three massive ideas of Schopenhauer's stand out. That music is a unique art form which profoundly reflects the nature of the world, that human existence is an endlessly unfulfilled striving, and that redemption comes through a change in consciousness in which desire ceases and the boundaries of the self are dissolved. Schopenhauer proclaims that whatever comes and goes in human history is so much irrelevant froth. Humanity has a timeless place in the world order, timeless and basically hopeless, and no human action can ever really change it for the better. This earned Schopenhauer fame as the philosopher of Pessimism, though that was not a title he gave himself. Nor was the fame easy to come by. He first published The World as Will and Representation in 1818, but it was only with a popular collection of essays in 1851 that he found a public. Gradually, the middle classes, artists and intelligentsia of Europe and America started to read him. In Schopenhauer's world, there is no God, no absolute being or divine purpose. Nietzsche called him the first admitted and uncompromising atheist among German philosophers. Schopenhauer's question was, does existence have any meaning at all? The prospects initially looked bleak. Full of unresolved desire, suffering and boredom, with no point outside itself, life is essentially in vain, a form of Nichtigkeit, or nothingness. Life is in need of some redemption, but there's no divine order to provide it. For Schopenhauer, the world has two contrasting aspects. First, the world as representation, the world's manifest image, the way we ordinarily experience it, a world of separate things and events arranged in space and time. Then, beyond our ordinary experience, the world as it is in itself, the single essence of everything. This, Schopenhauer argues, is the world as will. Everything is striving, consciously or unconsciously, tending towards some end or other. We are no exception. Our essence is what Schopenhauer calls the will to life, which drives us to pursue the perpetuation of our existence and the reproduction of our species. However the individual life turns out, whatever our particular goals and desires, all lives are the same. We strive for one thing or another and suffer from not having it. We get what we want, but then feel nothing but a momentary relief, only to find a new desire rush in, leaving us unsatisfied again. And too much satisfaction produces boredom, the odious condition of having nothing particular to strive for. Sexual desire is the most intense form of willing. We think we're yearning for a perfect union with a unique object of love, but that, for Schopenhauer, is an elaborate facade. The demeaning reality is the will to life, an instinctive drive to procreate that works in us blindly beneath the level of consciousness. The genitals, Schopenhauer likes to tell his reader, are the focus of the will. His picture of the blind, unconscious drive that he calls will, overpowering the conscious I or ego, seems remarkably prescient in our post-Freudian age. For Schopenhauer, the Greek myths of eternal punishment eloquently portray our own everyday condition. As long as our consciousness is filled by our will, says Schopenhauer, as long as we're given over to the pressure of wishes with their constant hopes and fears, as long as we're the subject of willing, we will never have lasting happiness or peace. But without peace, there could be no true well-being. So the subject of willing remains on the revolving wheel of Ixion, keeps drawing water from the sieve of the Danaids, is the eternally yearning Tantalus. However, Schopenhauer does offer us an escape. Aesthetic experience is an altered consciousness in which we find release from striving and pain. Tragedy is the art form that best conveys an objective insight into the timeless human condition. But music is the privileged form of art for Schopenhauer. Music expresses the will directly. Not your will or mine, but the world will, the universal essence of the tensions and resolutions present in willing as such. Music is superior because it can get to the heart of the matter without images, words or concepts. A musical melody or harmonic progression sets out in a direction, as it were, and strives through time from moment to moment to attain its goal. Long, slow pieces with delayed resolution convey the state of unfulfilled willing. Fast pieces with easy transitions are expressive of fleeting happiness. Schopenhauer may have stuck to his preference for Mozart and Rossini, but many have found Wagner's music the best exponent of Schopenhauer's own views. Music as direct copy of the will, and endless unfulfilled longing as the essence of the world. Schopenhauer closes The World as Will and Representation with the idea that the only true value in life lies in a state of resignation in which the will is quietened altogether. Moral goodness takes us some of the way. A morally good person acts out of compassion and makes less of a distinction than is usually made between themselves and others. They see others as I once more, as he puts it. To be moral is to have an inbuilt immediate sense of the suffering in all living beings, not just humans. We refrain from harming them and seek to alleviate their suffering. The paradigm case for Schopenhauer is also the most extreme: self-sacrifice for the good of others. In compassion, we see through the principle of individuation, which makes us appear distinct from one another. We don't feel isolated or separate. We glimpse the oneness of all expressions of the will and treat all suffering on a par. The moral outlook penetrates behind what Indian thought calls the veil of Maya. Well ahead of his time, Schopenhauer studied and embraced Vedanta and Buddhist doctrines. The ultimate redemption Schopenhauer offers, beyond morality, strikes me as potentially uplifting, but really quite disturbing. As his book reaches its climax, Schopenhauer's intense conviction and powerful prose take on a distinctly religious tone. He speaks of saintliness, conversion, redemption, and grace. Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism all contain elements of the same wisdom, provided one sets aside their accumulated clutter of deities and dogmas. This common wisdom concerns an inner transformation, which Schopenhauer calls the will's self-negation or self-abolition. The individual will is switched off. No longer motivated to pursue goals or flee from harm, we attain an elevated state of resignation and look upon the whole world as if from nowhere within it. The individual character or person is extinguished. This, Schopenhauer claims, would be a blissful emptiness, void of striving, void of suffering. In this state, one could calmly accept death, which he calls the great opportunity no longer to be I.